Hello and welcome to yet another episode of A Day in Film MiniCast. It is your host, the Patnator, as always, and you already know the movie we're going to get into. But before we get into discussing this great piece of cinema, I have to first self-shill a little. It would really mean the world if you, the viewer, yes, you, right there, sitting on your couch in brown shorts? It would really mean the world if you subscribed and liked the video, or one or the other, or both, or commented even. Any and all feedback is seriously appreciated. It keeps me going, and it makes me feel like I'm really talking to someone and not just myself, which is what I'm doing right now. With that all out of the way, I hope you enjoyed the Whiplash video, and also the I Saw the TV Glow and the Videodrome video. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the actual subject of the video. So today, on September 24th, Tuesday of 2024, I watched The Substance, directed by a French director. I'm going to butcher the name. Coralie Farguiet. I don't know. I think that was more Russian than anything. But yeah, that's her name. I have not seen Revenge. I know that's this director's other big film. I heard mixed things about it, but from what I can tell, it looks mostly fine. So I went into this movie with no experience in her filmography, obviously, and I really didn't know what to expect other than that a lot of people were liking it. At least right now on Letterboxd, this movie has like a 4.1 with mainly 8, 9, and 10 star reviews, which is crazy. I definitely wasn't expecting that going in. And having now watched it and seen everything there is to see about the film, I'm confident in saying that it is deserving of that 4.1 average. To summarize the plot, if you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it and you just need a little bit of a refresher, it follows a washed-up actress, something Sparkle, I'm trying to remember her name. It follows her, played by Demi Moore, I want to say, and, she has confidence issues, and she feels uncomfortable, and she's not as pretty as she used to be, so she ends up getting ends up getting The Substance, the title of the movie, and from The Substance, a Margaret Qualley, younger version of her named Sue, again played by Margaret Qualley, emerges from her and starts living the life that she wanted to live. And this whole movie is kind of centered around the concept of vanity. This whole movie feels very vain, especially Demi Moore and even Margaret Qualley. They both their characters feel incredibly like self-centered, and the whole reason that Demi Moore does this substance at all is to look good again. But to start there, conceptually, I think this movie is a total I was about to say disaster. No, that's not true. It is a total success conceptually. The idea of making a younger you to go and live the life you want to live, and you control them, and it's a back and forth kind of thing, and I think it's a really cool idea, and it's executed really well. I like the eventually they end up locking away Demi Moore, so that Margaret Qualley can live her own successful life as Sue without having to basically give the controls back to Demi Moore. And it looks really good. This whole movie looks great. And obviously when I say great, I mean in a cinematography way, because the movie is shot pretty competently. But I also just mean the way the camera but the things that the camera focuses on. This is a very, I don't know how to put it without sounding like a weirdo. This is a very empowering movie. The nude female form is shown for a very good chunk of this movie's runtime. Actually, Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley are completely naked for a lot of their scenes where they're not in control, basically. And it's the way that especially Margaret Qualley is shot, being super suggestive, like sexually suggestive and in your face, like not nonchalant about it or anything. It shows just how like fickle and fake this whole Hollywood thing is, but it does it without like shining it in your face. Like the workout show that she ends up being on for a bit, Pump It Up, I think it's called, feels like it could totally exist. It's nothing to do with exercise. It's just look at how hot our actors and actresses are, and she does a great job at portraying this. She does this I guess very suggestive persona incredibly well. And Demi Moore especially throughout the movie, she gets less and less attractive. I think it's a great metaphor for how fleeting the sense of beauty can be. Her whole thing is being washed up, and if Sue, or Margaret Qualley's character, was given the time, she would eventually be washed up too, which is just a really neat feature. So not only that, but the whole the way the substance is handled, like the actual like procedure of doing it, is really cool. Having to give birth out of your spine, and then the clone has to suck spinal fluid out and inject it into themselves to keep them from like exploding, basically, is a really cool idea, and it looks really gross too. This movie does not hold back on the gratuity and like violence and just pure visual like carnage at all. It goes all the way in a good way, I'd say. Especially in the latter half of the movie, which is, or not the latter half, but the final scene, basically, the very extended final scene. I think that's the only instance in the whole movie where it feels a little overdone, and it feels kind of meaningless. But for the rest of the movie, it all feels very purposeful. It doesn't feel like it's just, look how gross this is. It feels like you're seeing exactly what would be happening, and it doesn't feel focused on or anything. Especially for Demi Moore, she does a lot of nudity in this movie, and her form, at least her nude form, is never really the focus of the scene. She's just kind of naked, and she's like looking at her, her hips or her breasts, and she's like, man, I'm not what I used to be. And then in contrast, Margaret Qualley is nude for a lot of this movie, and pretty much all of it she is shot very suggestively, and showing off how sexy she is because she's young, just like Demi Moore used to be. A lot of really cool parallels between the two characters, because even though Margaret Qualley isn't a direct clone of Demi Moore, it's still the younger and, in quotes, better you, like in the Substance ad. The music in this film, especially the main little track, I have no idea what it's called or who did the music, but it's a really catchy piece of music. In a way, it kind of reminded me of Challengers, with the very heavy like synth and electronic sound to it, and it really does a lot for the film, being so disturbing, but kind of always moving forward with Sue's career and Demi Moore trying to figure out what she does in the meantime. Really cool. I found myself drawing connection to. This is gonna sound silly, but I found myself drawing connections to Love Lies Bleeding, in the way that both movies kind of focus on one's own image and vanity. And in fact, for a while, pretty much the entire runtime of the film, I thought it was directed by the same person who directed Love Lies Bleeding, Rose Glass, I want to say her name is, and it was not, but that I love that kind of horror movie. This is definitely more of a horror movie than Love Lies Bleeding. I don't know what you'd call that movie. I guess it's more of a thriller drama horror, maybe. But this movie is definitely horror first and then a drama, because they do not hold back on any of the grossness or gratuity, like I already said. In fact, the last 10 minutes of this movie is pure carnage. So if you're into that, then you will love The Substance. I really don't have much else to say. The guy next, this movie is also pretty funny, very dark comedy kind of things, but there are also just some genuinely funny line deliveries, especially from a character I'm forgetting the name of. He's basically the studio executive. Just the way he talks and the way he acts and things like that, really odd, but in a funny way. And also the way that the director, whose name I already forgot, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce if I looked up because they're French, the way they make all these, there's one longer fight scene in the movie, if you've seen it you know what I'm talking about, near the end, and the way that characters fly across the room when they get hit is a really cool and silly little add-on and feature in the movie. I couldn't help but laugh. There are some genuinely funny moments in this movie, and I loved it. But with all that said, I think that's all I really have to say for The Substance. I'm kind of stuck between a 7 and 8 out of 10. I say right now it's probably more of an 8 because I just saw it and I'm kind of riding off the high that the movie does give you. But on rewatch it probably wouldn't hold up as well, because there are some very very fickle decisions in this movie, and some things just aren't as good as the director clearly wanted them to be. But with that finally all out of the way, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the theaters.